So the kings of the housing market fear porn, they're back. And I love that word, fear porn, that Dave Ramsey talks about. Well, we have two guys on YouTube. There's actually a lot more than that continue to spread just, doom and gloom housing data almost on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times per day. Two channels specifically, and I'll share this with you guys right now. One is Reventure Consulting, and then the other one, of course, is our buddy Jason Walter, which I have invited, 2 or 3 times now to come on the channel and debate the housing market, 2023 housing market with me. I have not yet heard back from him, but hopefully I do. But here's the thing. It's working. The fear that this information really, really grabs people attention. I mean, to be fair, look at their channel. I'm going to compare the stats of these two channels with my channel. So their channel is in red, mine is in blue. Look at the views on Reventure Consulting in the last 30 days compared to mine. He's had a little over 4 million views in the last 30 days compared to mine. Well, let's look at Mr. Jason Walter. We have a channel that is similar in size. I think he's got 75,000 subscribers. I have 55,000 subscribers. But look at the views. He has almost 1 million views in the last 30 days compared to my 180,000 views. So you cannot argue the fact that spreading fear really, really works a lot better than sharing positivity on social media. So is that why they spread? Is that why they do the fear mongering? I don't know. Potentially, yes. And what this video is about is how these two individuals and many, 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 many more are taking segments of the data, small snippets of the data, and they're manipulating that data. And I was thinking about it when I was like, all right, I'm going to make this video. What is a good analogy that I can give to people so that we can really understand, maybe outside of the housing market, what people like this are doing with the housing market data by manipulating the data to spread fear, to gain clicks and build their audience, which is absolutely working for these guys. You can't take that away from them. So I think I came up with something that's pretty interesting. So let me share my screen and share this with you. Hopefully this will hit the same way it hit for me. I want to look at football. I'm a huge football fan, and regardless if you are a football fan or not, this is going to hopefully make a lot of sense on what these people are doing with the data. The 1972 Miami Dolphins went undefeated, 14-0 as the screen shows you, and they went on to win the Super Bowl that year in 1972. Awesome. Great year, perfect year, undefeated record. They go on to win the Super Bowl. And so the question then is, okay, well, what happened to the 1972 Dolphins in 1973, the very next year? The team entered the 1973 season as defending Super Bowl champions, followed its undefeated season in 1972. In week 1, the Dolphins extended their winning streak to 18 with a win, 21-13, over the San Francisco 49ers. However, the following week, they were defeated 12-7 by the Oakland Raiders, which ended that winning streak. Now, let's look at this because this is super, super important. So the Miami Dolphins come out in 1973, and in their first 2 games, they win 1, they lose 1. They're 1-1. Guys like these YouTubers would make a headline about that reads something like this. They would probably say, 1973 Miami Dolphins lose 50% more games than they did in 1973? Or are the 1973 Miami Dolphins crashing in comparison to the 1972 Dolphins? Or 1973 Dolphins crashing, or 1973 Dolphins, some type of doom and gloom. I can't even think of anything right now. I think you get the point. Because of the data. They started off 1-1. They had a 50% win streak, 50% losing percentage in the first two games. However, here's where these guys fail. It's not just these two. There's a lot of them. They're taking snippets of the data, and then they're reporting that data to you to spread fear, but they manipulate the data in a way that supports their position. I get it. I understand. However, check this out. If you only look at a portion of the data, you lose perspective, you lose context. Let's go back to the 1973 Miami Dolphins. They come out of the gate 1-1. Guys like that spread fear, but you didn't read the whole story. The whole story is the Miami Dolphins in 1973 went on to yet again go back-to-back, win the Super Bowl, and their record ends up being 12-2. And so what's the point? The point is, if you only take a snippet of the data, like these guys do, like a lot of others are doing right now with the housing market right now, and you take a segment of the data, and then you communicate that data as all this fear or doom and gloom, and you do not compare it to anything, it's very difficult to draw any type of conclusions, just like that 1972-73 Miami Dolphins. If you just looked at the first two games of the 1973 Miami Dolphins and they were 1-1, you can make content or headlines of that team is doomed. That team is losing half of its games. But then when you put the data in context and you say, well, wait a minute, compared to what? Or wait a minute, let's give context of the full story. The full story is they went 1-1. Oh, but by the way, the rest of the story that we left out, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. They ended up winning 12 games. They ended up going 12-2. Oh, I see. Now I have the full data. So these guys are honestly on a daily basis. Let's go to Jason Walter first. These guys are making videos every single day around some type of doom or gloom report that comes out. And I'm going to talk about a report specifically that they're having a field day with, right? So new home sales plummet. Going to get ugly for 2023. And then when I watched this video, it was almost like he was unsure of himself even communicating the data. And a lot of the data in this video specifically kind of went against his position that the housing market is going to crash. This pending home sales plunge, biggest decline since April 2020. Well, that's kind of just the point. We're going to talk about that more in just a second. Same thing on Reventure Consulting's YouTube page. If you look at all his videos, let's go and click on videos. Home price is about to drop a lot, right? He's just very, very much so spreading this fear-mongering. And then you look at the data, or you watch the video and say, dude, a lot of the points you're making are counter arguments than the position that you take. So let me share a report that these guys are having a field day with. And let me do exactly what I did with the story about the 1972-73 Miami Dolphins and give you some context that these guys fail to give you when they make their videos because, again, fear sells. I proved it to you at the beginning of this video. This video will probably be dog shit compared to their videos because I'm spreading what I won't even call it good or bad news. I'm just sharing literally the facts that maybe portray news that is not as fearful as what they are sharing. And this video, I guarantee you, probably won't do as well, as many views as they're getting when they're just spreading a piece of the context that seems very alarming. But we'll see what happens. So check this out. Here's the report that these two and many, 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 many others are having an absolute field day with, but they're failing to tell you the whole story. I made a video last week about the one that Patrick Bet-David made on the same exact report. This is the September pending listing count, down 23%. You can see this on the screen right now, year over year. So everyone's having a huge field day with this. Demand's crashing. We know demand is going down because interest rates are up. We know that. But again, if you don't give the audience anything to compare the data to draw some type of conclusion, and you say, well, we're down 23%, of course you can spin that to be a very, very negative. But when you compare it, you say, well, what's the problem? Look at the exact same report that these guys are showing that they fail to make comments on. So September 2022, there's 468,000 homes that went under contract in September, which is down 23% from what? From 2021, which is the green line right above it. Now, let's stop for a second. 2021 was a statistical anomaly, meaning we never had more listings or more pending listings ever in the history of this country. So anything from that point is going to be lower. Of course, when you come out of a winning season and you're going undefeated, if you lose just one game, of course it's going to be a huge negative drop, what perceives to be a huge negative drop on the ratios. But compared to what? 14-0 is 100% win percentage. 12-2 is, call it maybe an 80% win percentage, but they still won the Super Bowl. If pendings are down 23% compared to last year over year, which they are, compared to winning a Super Bowl, that's the thing. I keep calling the 2021 housing market the jackpot of real estate markets ever. Because of the pandemic, we saw things that have never happened, listen, in the history of the economy, in the history of the world. You almost have to erase these two factors. And if you did, you took the statistical improbability, the statistical anomaly out of the equation, look at the years 2019, 2018, 2017, which, oh, by the way, no one was calling for a housing crash in those years. And then you compare September 2022 to those years, which is below on the graph, you see, wow, it's actually more. There are more homes that went under contract in September 2022 in comparison to 2019, 18, and 17. Well, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? And you could do that with all of the data, right? Total listing count, having a field day with this. Oh, look at, active listings. They're up 0.7% year over year. Right. They're up after the year of the lowest listings we've ever seen in the history of the world. Well, look at it compared to 2017, 2018, 2019. Oh, it's way down. Inventory is way, 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 way down. All right, let's look at this again. So let's go back to this pending listing. Isn't it also interesting that every single year, and I'll show you a different report from Redfin, which they both use quite often. If you look at the graph on the screen right now, and I have this going back to 2012. Let's go back to pending sales, and we'll look at this since 2012. We'll look at every single year in the month of September. What happens? Every single September ever. Oh, that's right. Pending sales goes down. 2012 it went down. 2013 down. 2014 down, 15 down, 16 down, 17 down. Every single year in September, pendings go down. Why? You have to give the audience context. every year. If you've been in real estate for any length of time, and I don't know how long those dudes have been in real estate or not, we know every single year that in September, when kids go back to school, less people list their homes, less pendings happen, the market slows down. I'm not suggesting for a second that the housing market is not cooling off. It's not slowing down. Interest rates are insane. I'm not suggesting that. But we have to give context to the data. You can't just manipulate the data to one part of the data, compare it to nothing, because a 25, 30, 40% drop without context can appear very scary. But then when you compare it and you say, okay, well, let's look at what happens. Oh, that's right. Every year in September, pendings go way, 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 way down. And then, oh, by the way, let's give some more context. September's pendings, when we look at this, 450,000 homes go pending, down 23%. From when? Compared to what? Well, look at the graph. September of 2021, 603,000 homes went pending in September 2021, which, oh, by the way, was the largest number of pendings the world has ever seen. So doesn't it just only make sense that when you come off of a winning season or winning the lottery or a undefeated season, that any loss from there might seem significant? Well, yeah, it would. But when you compare it to the data in the years prior, you could say, okay, well, let's go back to a normal market. What actually happened in maybe 2018 in a normal market in September? Oh, we had 415,000 homes go pending in a normal market in September 2018. Let's compare that to right now. Oh, you start to see there's actually more. There's more homes going under contract now than what we had before in a normal market. So when you compare and you give you, the audience, context, and you say, well, geez, guys, what is the big deal? Why are you so scared? Pendings are down, yes, from the undefeated season last year, but when we compare it to a normal season, we're actually better. Isn't that super interesting? So that pending report they're having just a field day with. The next thing they're talking about is, of course, a lot of the data coming out of the Mortgage Banker Association. And they love this report with mortgage applications down, all these different things. Well, the Mortgage Banker Association just came out with another report literally yesterday. And let's read the whole thing. Let's not just take snippets like these guys that manipulate reports, manipulate data, and only share the scary parts. Let's give you the whole context of the report. So this is from Joel Kam, who is the chief economist from the Mortgage Banker Association. And let's go through the entire report, not just part of it, like the fearmongers. Let's go through the whole thing. So high mortgage rates and recession fears are hurting home prices. So expect price growth to be flat this year, one expert says. Our forecast is for more home price growth, moderation to continue, Joel Kam, Vice President and Deputy Chief Economist of the MBA, said Sunday during the organization's annual conference in Nashville, Tennessee. He said from the MBA that home price growth will continue to be moderate, no crash. Home prices have already begun moderating, according to the Case-Shiller home price, which fell month over month, June to July for the first time in 20 years. The latest numbers, which will be for August, will be reported on Tuesday. With a recession likely in the cards, on top of the mortgage rates near or above 7%, we've already seen a pretty dramatic pullback in housing demand, which we have. I totally agree. Well, let's keep going. The 30-year fixed rate averaged 6.94% compared to a year ago at 3.85%. The MBA is also expecting rates, listen, to come down to 5.4% by the end of the year. Why don't they report on that part? Why don't they share that part of the report? Why is it that they only take pieces of the report and say, hey, mortgage applications are down 50, 60, 80%. Okay, that's scary. But we also anticipate, as the Fed continues to raise the Fed funds rate to fight inflation, inflation comes down, mortgage rates actually follow inflation. And oh, by the way, we believe that mortgage rates will in fact come back down, which will then do what to demand? Well, it will help demand pick back up later in 2022, early in 2023. They don't report on that. Absolutely not. That's good news. We just have to talk about the crash. Well, these guys continue to talk about home prices dropping and dropping and dropping. These are YouTubers. Well, I say, okay, cool. What are the experts actually saying? So let's look at what they're saying. Here's the latest forecast from major organizations who, I don't know, is it unreasonable to believe that these organizations have their finger more on the pulse than maybe some random talking heads on YouTube? I don't know. You be the judge of that. But the Mortgage Banker Association, their 2023 home price forecast, as you can see on the screen, is what? Oh, not a 50% crash like these guys are suggesting. It's a 2.8% increase in home prices. Okay, well, let's go on. What's next? The Home Price Expectation Survey, which is a poll of over 100 industry experts, also call for a 2.6% home price increase. What about the National Association of Realtors? Increase 1.2%. Fannie Mae and Zelman report their forecast. Fannie Mae says down 1.5% home prices. Zelman, the biggest one, 4% decrease. The average is pretty much a flat home market when it comes to prices next year in 2023. You see, the definition of a housing crash are home prices, but why are they not showing the data from the actual experts? Well, because they wouldn't get very many clicks to say, listen, home prices are going to be just fine. Nobody's going to click on that, but when they say home prices are going to drop by 80%, well, certainly they're going to get some people to click on that. So anyway, it's just interesting to me that we have, so much fear-mongering going around right now around the housing market, and it's coming from everybody. It's coming from, people on different news stations. It's coming from YouTubers. It's coming from influencers. It's coming from all over the place. Here's the key thing. You have to say, okay, the person who's reporting on the news, what is their angle and why? I believe for these YouTubers, they present the data the way that they are because it's working. Their channels are growing exponentially. And then the ads revenue on those YouTube videos, they're getting paid a lot of money. So to me, it's like, okay, that makes sense why you leave out 90% of the context. So I'm going to continue to give you guys all the context, all the perspective that you need so you really understand what's happening as we continue to move through the rest of 2022 into 2023. As the market continues to shift, interest rates go up and down, the Federal Reserve continues to do what they're going to do to fight inflation. So I'm going to continue to give you guys the facts. Give me your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in another video very soon.